Yes, we are live.
We are
Cool.
live.
Oh my God. I think there was some tweets around who will be the guest for the 10th version of this stream. And Oscar, it's you.
Yay,
Welcome.
yay. Thank you,
So
thank you.
cool.
Happy to be here.
I can't pronounce your last name. Do you want to say it before I say it wrongly?
Yes, it's a Dutch name. I would say it's a very elegant Dutch name, and it's called Van Zijverden.
Von Zijverden. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty
Nice.
good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but I need you to say it before I say it because if I only would read it, it would be chaos in my mouth. It's funny. I think we had the best preparation because normally I would say, hey, it works on my machine. If it's not working on yours, it's your problem. But in our
Yeah,
funny situation is I tried out HonoX to build a full stack application in preparation of the stream. And funny enough, there were parts of that application that I couldn't run on my computer. And when I checked in the code and you checked it out in GitHub, you said it runs on my machine, but not on yours. So that brings us
yeah.
into the really good situation that we should start building something. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. Let's see. Let's maybe choose a machine where it actually works. And
Your
then
machine?
yeah, let's do my machine and then see how far we can get.
Nice. Yeah. So maybe I think there are so many ways if we think of full stack, how we can build full stack applications. And last week I did the presentation with Hustle together, and we had a very simple front end. And we basically used the functionality of Hono itself to render HTML and use JSX components. But I think that's not the most elegant way, and you might have some opinion on that. But should we maybe start with that simple example to show how that would work?
Yes, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea. Let me share my screen. That's right over here. All right. I'm gonna, let's see. I'm gonna start a new project. PNPM create vite at latest. So what I'm gonna do, oh, it needs to be PNPM create Hono latest. We're gonna call it, we're gonna do front end tryout. We're gonna select Cloudflare workers here, install the dependencies, PNPM. Maybe make this a little bit bigger. All right, we're gonna go to front end tryout. Oh, I'm gonna initialize a Git repository, commit it, initial commit, so we can track a bit of the changes.
Nice.
All right. I'll zoom in a tiny bit. Okay, so this scaffolds a simple Hono app for us, which is right now a really simple API. It returns some text that says "Hello, Hono." Now, if we want to do build a front end in this, like you mentioned earlier, Nelle, we would use JSX for this, and I would say actually this is an elegant way to do it. So we're gonna first add some middleware to the app, and that's gonna be JSX renderer. This comes with like built-in with Hono, so yeah, this makes it like easier to like it makes it you don't have to install like any other packages. And we're gonna say we're gonna use this middleware first on the root of the app, right? So instead of like that it returns text, we're gonna return some JSX elements. So let's go here and we say c.render. Actually, I am thinking we need to add some more logic to this render. We'll get back to that in a second. All right, and then we say hello, Hono. Okay, we get some errors here because we're writing JSX in a TypeScript file, so we need to turn this into TSX. This renderer accepts some markup basically, so you need to rendering an HTML document, we need to provide some extra information for that. So we go to honc.dev and we find the JSX renderer middleware. And we're just going to take this example here. So this is basically the same structure that we have more or less in what I just showed. I'm just going to copy this, and then we're going to edit here. I get an error here because Biome expects there like a language to be mentioned. Okay, so I think what happens here now is the moment we hit this route, the middleware will be applied, and then the document, basically the HTML document, will be built for you by the middleware, and then in the route itself, we use the render function here and return some JSX. So this JSX is gonna be inserted basically here in the children property. All right, we're gonna start the server. So we're gonna say pnpn dev. And
we got an error.
Oh yeah, that's not so. So initially, when we scaffolded this project, the Wrangler file here is pointing to the main file to a TS file, but we just changed it to TSX. So we have to do that here as well. Go again. And then let's see. There we go.
There we go. Nice.
Hello, Hono. Where this menu comes from, I need to check.
I think it's in your code, right? It's
in my code.
Yeah, I think it says header there. In the header,
Oh,
it says menu.
Oh yeah, this is from the snippet that I just copied from the website. Okay. So
sorry, Oscar. I was wondering one thing. So you use the middleware right now, right? But just because I used it the last week, there's also the way just to return HTML and then pass into the HTML JSX component. But you would recommend using the middleware always for the rendering part, or?
Yes, I would say that would be my preferred way of writing this. But that's perhaps also because I used to work on full on JavaScript built like framework. So like in my case, then React, where all the basically everything that is inside like a document, which is basically just the HTML that gets served to the client, is handled in JSX. So there's like more logic you can apply to like in your application, the moment it grows and the moment it becomes more complex, to have the option to like adjust certain things in your HTML structure. So that would be my preferred way. This introduces more complexities which we can go into like in a little bit later. I wrote an article to sort of like come up with a solution to sort of like tackle these complexities. But I think to answer your question, yes, I would recommend using the JSX renderer itself instead of like using a plain index.html. But this is perhaps also after the Vite plugin, the Cloudflare Vite plugin that was mentioned by Brett in the last Honc Out. This is a thing that I still am exploring a tiny bit, where it's easier actually to use an index.html, but I still prefer to use this. Yeah.
No, makes a lot of sense.
So like the next step that I want to demonstrate here is like right now we're statically, so the server renders the HTML, or at least the JSX, and turns it into HTML and sends it to the client. But at some point we want to have some sort of like interaction, right? So I'm gonna create like a component file here. So we're gonna say it's gonna be a button component that has some sort of functionality. It's going to be a JSX file again. Hono ships with the JSX like library incorporated. We're going to say export function button, and then we say it's a button, and it's a type of button, and we say click me. Now this we like Hono like ships with some hooks that are similar to the hooks that we know from the React ecosystem. So let's say, what would happen if we click this button? Yeah, the text would change, I guess. So we say text button, set text button, and then is use state, which comes from the Hono. And then we say text button here. Now we're going to import this this component, and we're going to render it over here instead of like hello Hono. I called it button, aptly named. No, save it, and
Nice.
it says click me, right? But we don't have like a handler that does anything to execute here. You see here that we're using a useState hook, right? But we're not updating any of this text on click. But you can see basically this is rendered server side, and there's like no JavaScript like being shipped yet. But you can see that like this text is basically the text that like ends up in this variable, and that gets rendered, and that's what we see here on the page. Now we're gonna add a onClick handler. So we say handle click, and then set text button clicked, and we apply that handle click. We apply that here, and we save it. And we would expect to have this button text to change, right?
Yeah, I would expect that now, but probably we still are not shipping any JavaScript to the.
No, we're not shipping any JavaScript to the client. So this is sort of like where the tricky part starts, and why I wrote this article, because I was like creating neat APIs using Hono, and I'm a true front-ender by heart. I started like writing JSX immediately, because I was so happy to see that framework like this is shipping like a JSX like implementation itself as well, without like additional dependencies. But then like we're not now. You would expect, because you're used to writing these kind of components, it looks a lot like React, like one-on-one on React basically, but it's not doing anything. So I don't think we're gonna go into adding all this logic in this project over here. I think that doesn't make too much sense right now, because it's also like quite time consuming, and a bit of a complex feature.
But that's what you cover basically in your blog post, right? So you cover in your blog post how you add this, or would add this to a Hono project using JSX files. I wrote the article, and I found it was quite interesting, because I would also have expected, when I first saw the code, now it's doing it, but it was not. So
and it really has to do with build steps, because currently we're in this project, we're in a Wrangler environment, and so it's basically like a Cloudflare worker environment that like only knows one thing right now, and to sort of make this interactive, which that means that we need to ship some sort of like JavaScript to the end user, and so the article that I wrote is basically about having two build steps. So you have one build step for the Wrangler environment, and one build step for the client alone, that basically takes all the JavaScript that is or all the logic that is applied to all these handlers here, and then basically ships it to the client as well, like the moment your page loads, and that makes it like interactive.
Nice. Is there a way, like if I want to get started with a front-end application and I don't want to start like this, is there another way that you would recommend me to, get this interactivity maybe?
Yes, for sure. That would be HonoX, which is a framework that is built on top of Hono, and it's also created by the creators of Hono. And that's the intention of that project is really, a full stack approach to building Hono projects, because what we just like scaffolded like a small project is the intention out of the box is basically to create an API, right? And HonoX is creating not only the API but also really, the client side of things. Yeah, we can go perhaps in the other project that we've built.
That you built, yes.
Yeah, I did plenty of it. I wasn't alone, but I did plenty of it, which is
It's our Honc website, right? So
that's
that's the
our
website,
Honc website.
a personal website of our friend Goose.
Yes, this beauty.
Aw. Honk. Nice. And yeah, it's also open source now. So I mean, the
Yes.
website is living on the Fiberplane GitHub repo of organization in its own repo. So if you want to find out about it, you can also see the code later. But you have opened it now, as I see.
Yes. Yeah, I think what could be fun as well here is perhaps like create like scaffold a HonoX project and then sort of like show what it comes with, out of the box, basically, like the idea that is sort of behind it. Would you be interested in that?
Sure, yeah, I think I saw that already, right? That's also if I do PMPM or Hono at latest. I can choose the X, what was it, X basic, and that's Hono X basically, right?
Yes.
Yes, let's do that maybe, and maybe let's because I felt I was building first only the backend logic with Hono. I think there's a few elements you have to wrap your head around because the app design looks a little bit different then. So instead of just thinking about your API in the end, you also have to start thinking more full stack and about all of those components. So it would be cool to see that project. And meanwhile, you're already there.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
So please continue. I will open this in a second.
Yeah, I was just wondering because we probably don't have time today for showing this after HonoX, but I mean, the other way would be also I leave my endpoint with Hono as it is and would then bundle it up, or I don't know, bundle is probably not the right word, but would have a React front-end application and connect both. That's also another option that I've seen. Also not tried yet, but cool. Yeah, you are there. You are there.
Yes, we're here. So what HonoX like does out of the box, it's basically a meta framework that is a bit more I guess opinionated in how to structure your project, right? So it has some solutions basically for the problems that I just mentioned in the other project that we spun up. Is like we're not shipping JavaScript to the client. That's basically the core of the problem, and that's what HonoX is solving. And similar to other frameworks, it has I think that's an important aspect of HonoX. It has file routes basically. So you have like a routes folder, and this is the convention. You have a routes folder, and then every file in there is a route on its own. If you go here to the renderer, this is perhaps if you work with Next.js, this is like similar to the Next.js like underscore document before they move to the app router. this is the same sort of idea. And as you can see here, this is the same renderer that we just used in the other tiny project. But yeah, so it ships. It comes with certain paradigms, I guess. So if we say, I'm going to spin this up as well.
Nice. Harshil says hello. In the time.
Hello,
the code is
Harshil.
spinning
Happy to have you.
up. Nice. Cool. Now, can you click the button to see if it does something?
Yes, yes. So this is like immediately, this is like immediately what it comes with, and they immediately show like, hey, this is there's interactivity in the page that actually works. So we click and it's incrementing the number, which is
Nice.
fantastic. So there's like a lot of heavy lifting that is being done for us, like when we spin up like a project in HonoX, that allows like an easy implementation of these kind of components.
It also includes Vite already, right? So it is already.
Yes. So if you check out the configuration here, it's it comes with like a Vite setup, and then also some Tailwind if you're into that, and the necessary build steps.
Cool. And basically that means if I'm used to build backend applications, I think that's where my head needs to start. Like I would then just create a new file, TSX file in the roots folder, and add my app logic, but also the front end logic into that, right? And if I want to use components that need JavaScript, I would put them in the islands folder, as far as I understood. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where I would then only put those interactivity parts in to make sure that I only, that I have the static side, but then only hydrate it with the things that I need in the island folder.
Yeah.
I somewhere read the comment like the HTML is your ocean and the JavaScript is your island. Found it quite funny because there's also the book in German, or maybe that exists also in English, about Java as an island, and now JavaScript snippets also become an island. Well,
yeah.
Sorry, side fact.
Yeah, and I think that's I don't know who it was anymore. I got notion of the fact of islands when reading the history of like how HonoX became to be. So that's like also what I really like of the Hono ecosystem.
Oh no, Oscar?
The history of issues and those kind of things, and how they came to the solutions and the ways of implementing certain aspects of the frameworks. And this is where I learned about islands, and this is exactly how you describe this. It's one engineer that coined, or at least that came up with this how do you say? With the sort of like naming for what an island is, and I think that's quite fun.
Yeah, I think I like it too. It's better than components, or I don't know. It's like it's an island. So yeah. But I was like the first time I had to read about it because I was like, oh, what's doing this island folder now in my application folder? What's that? But yeah, I mean, it becomes quite logical, and also then it's cool to have that naming. So if you, well, I don't know if you can give it, like, what would you recommend for someone building full stack now? What is the way you would go if you would create honc.dev again? Would you choose HonoX, or would you choose a different approach if you have to decide it again?
I think I would. I'm actually leaning. So to give like an idea, like I started with like the first bigger project that I built with Hono was the Honc website, and then I built like many projects with Hono itself, where I felt like I don't want to be too restricted with certain rules within this project that I'm working in. So I try to come up with like different solutions in like hydrating, like making hydration like easier in let's say regular Hono apps. But I think for especially for statically generated content, and then this website honc.dev is mostly static content, I would say HonoX. And it also has to do with the fact that there are like some more integrations that makes your life a whole lot easier. We can go to the Honc site repo, and then one of the things that I really like about that is you can have some integration. So if we go to the vite config, we have some plugins here which are basically allowing us to use MDX like in a really sensible way. So instead of like, if we go to the routes, instead of that we're having React or TSX components here, we can have MDX files, which is basically Markdown, but you can also import and like TSX files. So basically, you know, Hono or /React components in our case. And that allowed me to create like, let's go to the index. It's a bit like what I wanted to have is certain components and then have the text basically be leading there. So if anyone wants to change any of this copy here, it's not going to be, you know, they don't have to dive through a whole bunch of files. They don't have to dive through like individual components to update any text, which I personally like think is absolutely amazing. Plus, it takes away, I guess, some routing issues that you otherwise also have to spin up yourself, or you have to use like a React router implementation on like a worker environment, which is a bit iffy. There are some projects out there, but none of those are yet mature enough to use in production. And I think HonoX has been, for me at least personally. So I would say, yeah, go for HonoX in that sense. Yeah.
Would there be any recommendation where you still think it could be useful to have a React front end, like if it becomes more interactive or if you have more things to do in the front end, or would you then still lean towards HonoX more?
I think if you like, a single page application could be fine, where you don't necessarily need HonoX. So HonoX is really nice for, I think, for a lot of static content. So for blogs or marketing pages where there's like limited amount of interactivity. When there needs to be more activity, I would like right now lean towards just let's say a regular Hono application where like a single page application is tied to.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think also SEO is definitely also a big part of it, where if you have statically, you know, if everything is generated server side, then that will be beneficial on the SEO part as well.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we are almost at the end of time with our front end edition. I mean, I start dipping my toes into the front end universe by using this, and by also reading your article, by trying out HonoX myself. I feel maybe my next demo app will have a nicer front end. Let's see what we can do. But yeah, Oscar, thanks for joining. I hope you had some fun here. Maybe we have you sometime again to discuss more
Absolutely.
about content. And with that, I'd like to end our 10th anniversary stream for today. So thanks for watching and hope to see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.